Okay, we have a super show today. This is ThinkTech tutorial, or otherwise known as making sausage at ThinkTech, where we let you in on our secrets, on how the hosts deal with the other hosts and the guests, and we teach each other from our experiences. We tell stories, sea stories. We do chills and spills and thrills and tips and tricks. And that's what we do on ThinkTech tutorial every Thursday. Worth watching for sure. And today our special guests are two ThinkTech hosts. One is Howard Wigg, and he's the host of Code Green, which is on Mondays at 3 o'clock. Okay, very valuable show, very important show, and it seems to me becoming more important all the time.
I have lots of fans. People come up to me, I saw you on television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That shows you that at least somebody's out there watching you, Howard. And Anu Hittle, she is Climate Change Beyond Outrage, and that is at
Tuesday at 1.
Tuesday at 1 o'clock, okay? And they're related in the sense they're both about the environment. Obviously, Code Green is about the environment, and Outrage is about the climate change, and that's why we're calling this show, this ThinkTech tutorial, Green Outrage, Go Figure.
All right.
So we wanted to get the benefit of your experience, your thoughts, your creative juices. And so in the hopes that other hosts will listen, and also that the public will listen and sort of have an idea about what we do here. It's so important that we show them, the purity of our efforts. Totally. Okay, so you guys both are demonstrated that you can get great guests. What is your secret? How would you go first?
Secret is to act like a salesman. One of my good friends is an insurance salesman, and I notice that every time he meets a new person, he shakes their hand, looks into their eyes, repeats their name several times, gets very interested in them, and just treats them like royalty. And I have the good fortune to go to a lot of conferences, expos, and so forth, all of which are kind of related to my field, which is energy efficiency. So especially if it's a good-looking woman, I'll go up and shake hands.
He's gesturing to you, Anu, while he said that. I noticed that.
I was trying to ignore that. You didn't have to point it out.
And introduce myself, get to know them, and find their field, and then judge. Ascertain their level of expertise. Do they really know a whole lot about this subject? And if they sort of pass the test, then I say, would you like to be on my show? And that sounds like a pretty good
Yeah, that works.
Wow, yeah. Well,
but what I hear you saying is you're always on the prowl.
Absolutely.
Every engagement with every person on the planet is a possible guest.
Absolutely, and some very unlikely people, and of course, but, I met them, they're my friends now, what the heck. But so I am always on the prowl, I'm always on the lookout. Could this person be a guest?
The trick, Howard, is to remember the conversation.
Oh, I get their card.
Put it down
I
quick.
get their card and I scribble notes on the back of their
Guest.
card.
This is a guest.
Yes, yeah. And what they're particularly interested in.
Yeah. You haven't had any problem, actually. You have had some really sterling guests.
Yeah.
And they've all been focused, and they have been expert. And you've had high-level discussions because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at a big show, it was a grand opening of a air conditioning shop, and I met 5 people, potential guests, right there.
Bonanza.
Yeah.
It happens to me too. And I sometimes walk into a room and I see all these people there. And how am I going to work this room?
Yeah.
I've got to get some commitments from everyone.
And again, it's just like a salesman. That's how salesmen think. Everybody in this room is a potential salesman.
Yeah. I didn't know this about you, Howard. You're not the...
I used to be in the field, so.
Okay. Okay, Anu, how about you? What's your approach?
Well, I'm still a newbie at this. I've only done 6 episodes. I am booked out till middle of April.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So I've lined some people up. But I started with people I know. And I called them up and said, you want to be on my show? Like that. So I didn't do much selling. I just said, you know, here's the show, and it's 45 minutes of interrogation, and then they get yes, and then they get very scared,
Yes.
and then I show them what it really is like, and then they say, out of relief, they say, okay. So
Pain and pleasure,
Yes.
pain and pleasure.
So, but in all seriousness, it's been actually quite easy, I think, because ThinkTech has a good brand name, and so it's been fairly easy. When I say that I'd like to do this and it's on ThinkTech, then people have said, "Oh yes, you know, that sounds good. What does it? But what do I have to do?" And then we discuss the topic, and we'll get on to all those things. But yeah, it's
So what do you find the resistance points to be? I'm curious, you know.
like, when do they say no?
When
or
do they say no?
they haven't said no yet.
Okay.
But there was one who was kind of reluctant, so I sort of sent him a few emails, and he never responded. Then I left him a voicemail, and he didn't respond. Then one of his colleagues was on, and he must have seen that. And then I got an email saying, yes, I would like to do it. So I think it's a lot of just seeing what your fellow person has done,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a truth in there in the sense, it's sort of a common denominator truth in the sense that if you drop some names, you know, if you mention to one fellow that you just talked to his colleague last week, that's going to
That's
have
right.
an effect.
That's right.
Or, you know, you can say there's a lot of people, you know, on these shows, and you may know some of them, you know, and I mean, for example, you could tell them that Howard Wigg is a host, you know, on Monday. And then
Right,
that would
right. But I don't
interest
want them to go to Howard's show. I want them to go to mine. So I send them now I have about 6 episodes, and I have a playlist, so I can say, go and look there, you know, see what it's like, and you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to. Often they do end up watching the whole thing.
Yeah, they
so,
do.
Yeah, so
I
think
find our stuff is watchable in entirety. Now, not everybody does, but I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I just have to see, I have to validate that it's still running. I mean, I can pinch myself, it's still running. And then I start listening to it, you know. I mean, whatever, it's really good. And it keeps me up the whole night when it happens, because I can't put it down. It does not put me to sleep.
It's not like BBC World News or
No,
something.
no, I like that too, but
Yeah.
this is better.
Just better. We
So-
need to get that drone going, though,
Yes.
to put
it's
you to
true.
sleep.
Well, it's sort of background noise.
Yeah.
But, you know, I found that you know, people try to, they're shy, and they say, oh, I don't want to do that. Or I can't talk about that. That's a dangerous topic for me. I guess that's a category of resistance there. And then I'm too busy, and I have too many things going on. And that could be true, but maybe not. Or I'm not expert on that. I can't talk about that because I don't know enough about that.
Right.
So how do you cope with that? Do you say, oh, okay, I guess you're right, I'm wrong, goodbye? What do you do?
Well, I'm not an expert. Well, there are 2 things. You know, one is you could ask them, well, is there anyone else you think would be better?
That's what I do. Or
Yeah.
2 of you can come on, and you can share. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right.
good, that's good,
right.
that's good, yeah.
Or once we get talking about, sometimes they are intimidated by the length of the time. They think 45 minutes is too long, and when they actually do it, they think 45 minutes is too short. So what I try to say is that it's something that you'll be talking about. It's what you like doing. It's your job, and you like doing it. So it's not going to be a problem filling up the time or talking about that issue.
Yeah.
I have had one person say, I'm not an expert in this, and so, you know, she did suggest 2 other people who I asked
That's
to
good.
invite
Oh,
in.
yeah, so you don't let it die there, you
Right.
try to go another step.
I've had that same experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and when they say, oh, gee, 45 minutes, I couldn't keep talking for 45 minutes. It's just too long for me. And I mean, I always tell them, you know, hey, at the end of every show, the guy turns to me and he says, gee, that was fast. Is that 45 minutes?
Yeah.
It went so quickly.
Yeah.
Because it always happens like that.
Yeah.
Is when you're engaged, you know, when you're invested, all in, and most people are, the time goes so quick. And if you tell them that, I
Yeah.
think it helps.
And
Yeah.
the other thing I do is I say slides are welcome. Send the slides to Zuri, and in order of presentation, and that will lead the conversation. And then I also say, I know something about this topic. I can always fill in.
That's right.
And that pretty well reassures them.
Yeah, that's a good idea to tell them that, you know, the slides are something that will help fill the time, and they will discover that it's too short a time anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
They will find out, but
Yes.
you can try to give them some comfort by
Right.
saying, you know, that everyone I know doesn't think it's too much time. You know, Zuri, if you're on the line, Zuri Bender joins us. She's in the control room right now, but she's also very akamai about these things, and she's a great partner for our tutorial shows. Zuri, what would you like to say about slides?
Slides.
Yeah.
It's always good to submit slides that will actually be used on a show. Sometimes we get fluff slides that we don't really need, but slides can be a really great way to, you know, bring that visual to the viewer just so that they have a clearer idea of what you're actually discussing. Whenever you submit slides, it's always really great to label them. So maybe we can hear more about the labeling aspects.
Yes, let's talk about it. What would you like to see, for the control room? What would you like to see in the way of slides and graphics? What are the parameters? Because the hosts should know, because they're the front line of communication with the guests. They're going to be the ones having the conversation, and they should know. So what would you tell them?
Well, actually, I wanted to flip that right back to Anu because Anu does a really great job of getting her slides in order. She does an outline. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit more from Anu.
Okay,
on that.
Anu, you're on the seat now.
All right. Well, Zuri and I have, I think, done a pretty good job of communicating to each other what we need and when we need it. And so basically, I put an outline together with the slides, the episode. I'll put the slides in order, as you mentioned, Howard. And then there's usually, I think we've done a couple of different things as to when we want them on. Sometimes there's just a cue word, but we've just lately taken to really not mincing any words and just saying, let's just get the one that's numbered slide 1 on.
Sure, why
And so
not?
then
Sure.
it's a little bit academic,
But
like,
it
you know.
gets the job done.
It does, and I don't think I don't think anyone really minds that it's being presented that way.
Yeah,
so
nobody does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's what we end up doing.
Yeah, well, what I do is have the guest send Zuri the slides in order and me. I print them out and I have them right on the table so the guest and I can look. Slide 1, slide 2, slide 3.
That's very smart.
And I don't staple them. They're loose pieces of paper.
So you can change the order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say well, let's get to the next slide because that will really illustrate what we're talking about here. And
Another
it
great
makes it very
thing-
smooth.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut
Oh,
in
no,
there,
no,
Howard.
go ahead, yeah.
I was just going to say another great thing that you do, Howard, is if you see a slide that somebody submitted that isn't so great, you would either have us skip over that slide or else you would just have them kind of mention the key points from it, and then we would just move along just so we can keep the whole show going. That's always really great.
Yeah, especially if we're looking like we're going to run short on time. There are certain core elements of the presentation we want to focus on.
Yeah, I think you have to remember you're always talking to Zuri about this. It doesn't sound like you're talking to her, but you're really communicating with her about what slides, and we've had enough slides, or we need some more slides, or how we're going to do the voiceover on the slides. We had one just a little while ago where Zuri put the slides up, and they were good graphics. And the guest turned to me and started talking about something completely unrelated. It was a clip. It was a movie clip, and the movie's playing. And he's talking about. So I directed his attention back to the movie.
Yes.
I don't want to waste it,
Yeah.
Or we could say, well, we're finished with that movie. But I think Zuri's always listening. Zuri's always trying to figure out what comes next.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can communicate without actually, communicating.
And doesn't it feel like break time?
Ooh, good timing. It is break
yes,
time.
I mean, if it does for you, it does for me and Anu. I think we're unanimous on that. So actually, Howard, why don't you take the break?
Well, this is not Code Green, and we're having lots of fun training the trainers on ThinkTech Hawaii back in a moment.
Hello, I'm Stephen Katz, and I'm the host of Shrink Wrap, which comes to you live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, and then it's repeated again whenever you want if you go to the website. On our show, we will be talking to all different kinds of therapists, psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists, people who talk about the mind, the brain, and about different ways to find happiness. I myself am a marriage and family therapist in practice here in Hawaii, and I hope you will join us because I've got a lot to learn, you've got a lot to learn, and it's a great ride. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
We're back, we're live, and coming out of this break, okay, Anu is going to come out of the break. Come out of the break. What will you do coming out of a break?
Welcome back. We are in the studio with Howard and Jay, and we're talking about making sausage. No.
Talk to the camera with the red light, right?
Right. Yes, we're talking to the camera with the red light.
Good. Okay, so I wanted to ask you guys, the profile of what did you call it, Howard? The Goldilocks guest, the GG, if you will. What is that? What's the profile?
That is, the best example I have is a fellow named David Chang, who is all of 34 years old. He owns about a dozen companies already, and he's a former head of the Republican Party. He's done everything, and he's so articulate, he's so smooth. I said, do you want to be a guest? Yes. What do you want to talk about? Okay, you got some slides? Yep.
All done.
He's so smooth, which is one reason he's so successful in life. Keep that name in mind, David Chang. He's just going up, 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 up.
Yeah.
So that was my real Goldilocks guess. And then on the other side are people who don't.
This is the dark side now.
Yeah.
This is the non-Goldilocks guest.
Yes, this was, you mentioned aggressive. This is a very aggressive guy. He was attacking this company, that company, another company, i.e. his competitors. And they're just, no, damn good. No. We accentuate the positive here. Talk about what's good about your product. And he wasn't paying any attention to anything. And he says, well, what? This is just radio, right? No. This is live streaming.
Really?
And I had to go back and forth with him. I said, Google Howard Wig Code Green. And he finally did. Oh, now I got it. I'm in a studio. Yes. Just had to struggle. And he turned out to be a really good guest, but I really had to struggle with him.
Well, I take that point is that you have to work with him sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are so terrific, you don't have to say anything. They self-start.
Yeah.
But other ones, you can see the problem, and maybe they're otherwise qualified, but there's some things you should say.
Yeah.
And you say them.
Yeah,
And maybe that helps.
This guy was technically qualified, but in terms of EQ, emotional intelligence, just sort of off the chart there.
Yeah.
And,
I was
it
on
was
a
like
show one
taming a
time.
lion.
I was a co-guest, and the fellow there was he was a lawyer, and he didn't like practicing. Talk about Zuri remembers this show. She remembers all shows, and the guy just didn't like practicing. He regretted having gone to law school. He regretted every moment of his life in the law. And he made a completely negative experience out of it. And nothing anybody could say could brighten his day. I said, whoa, that's really the guest from hell. How about you, Anna?
Yeah. Well, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people who work on natural resource issues, they do have some comfort level with presenting in a presentation kind of format, but not so much in front of the camera. And the cameras are kind of intimidating and the screens are intimidating. So I think that throws them off. And then one time we actually had some technical issues and so on. And I kept getting, that guest was quite distracted by those issues. So I try to prep them and say, if there are technical issues, just let me and the production staff handle that. Why don't you just focus on me? And then, you know, just look at me, look at me, right? So that's, I mean, I try to prep them ahead of time for those kinds of things. But it's really been that sort of slight camera skittishness and getting them feeling comfortable in front of the camera, which I think is hard if you're not used to it. So
Yeah.
I've had a couple of situations like that, and my reassuring words have been, I know something about this topic. If something happens, I will lead the conversation. I will do most of the talking. That reassures them, and then they open up, and boom, they start talking.
That's true. That happens a lot. Guy says, I can't talk for that long. I'm really nervous. Or should I prepare? Should I prepare notes? Should I prepare like it's a lecture? No. And I think you can assure them, as Howard mentioned, by simply saying, no, I'll ask you questions. I'll lead you. I'll take you. It's okay. We'll have a conversation. You don't have to. One guy wanted to spend the week, this is only last week, one guy wanted to spend the weekend preparing. He called me on Friday, he said, I have the weekend ready to prepare. I said, no. But I know you prepare a lot, don't you?
I do, and that's because I think I'm doing it in a slightly different format. Mine are quite highly scripted. They're quite structured because every segment we try and hit on something different, and I do want them to finish within that segment so we can move on to the next one. I do prepare a little blurb on what I'm going to say about that topic, and then I was just modeling it actually on a little bit on what Judy Woodruff would do in an interview, where she'll say a few words about the subject and then introduce the person and then interview that person. So I'm also thinking that I'm going to use these more as for students who might be interested and create a library of information. So I thought we keep the conversation, probably our conversation is not as much, I mean, in my show, it's not as much as other people's, you know, it's not like that much back and forth. I give them a few cues and then they go with it and with their slides and so on. So it's almost a lecture format in some ways, but there are questions in there and it is still conversational.
But other shows, you would be more conversational? I mean, does it
shows
depend on the substance and the guest?
I think the other shows, I find them more conversational and they're less structured than mine. I find that mine are very structured, and I'm very conscious of that.
It's your style. It's okay.
Well, that is what I want to do with them, but I'm just sort of saying that I recognize they are structured, but that's intentional.
Yeah. Well, you're right about a library. I mean, ThinkTech would like people to look at this later and say, gee, there's real content there. There's real value in there. Let me take notes, you know.
Right. And I'm hoping to link each episode with the main concepts covered and a list of readings so that students can actually use that. So
this is academic. Wow.
Yes.
It's okay.
So, you know, that's what I want. And I think when I sell that to people who get potential guests, when I mention that, they're interested and excited about putting something very structured together because they know that will
and you help them with it. You know, you're not going to have them walk in with 20 pages of notes. It's not going to work.
No.
How about you, Howard?
I let the slides lead us. Say, I want to cover this topic, this topic, this topic. And generally, I try to divide it into three in conjunction with our three segments.
The truth is that one topic will fill 15 minutes easily.
Yeah, easily, yeah. And if it doesn't, I say, well, let's, next topic is, da-da-da, and we started in the previous segment and we just spill over. And that's okay too. But that's how I organize the show. And he or she sends me the slides in advance. And I say, no, this one won't work, this one will work. Let's rearrange it. So that's how I organize it. And then we're both looking at the slides and saying, okay, we're just talking off the slides.
Yeah. So Zuri, what about the voiceover thing? I mean, I think always every day better. Always every day better. So how does it come off best with the slides? Do you want to have voiceover all the time? And with the movies, do you want to have the movie with sound and voiceover? What looks best to the audience?
You know, I think it really depends on every show when it comes to the slides. Sometimes if I'm following you really well, you don't need to even mention a slide. It's already on there. You don't need to go back and reiterate everything you just said if I already showed the slide. But on other hand, sometimes you just want to say, you know, we do have a photo about this, you know, particular topic. Let's show the viewer. And then we would bring that photo up, you would talk to it, the viewer would have a great idea of everything that you're trying to portray, and then it would go forward from there. But as for videos, sometimes you want to submit a video clip that has its own audio so we can have that total sensory feeling, you know, apart from the smells probably, to really get that feel of being in the field with you. But other times, if you submit some kind of B-roll, it's great to just continue talking right over it, or else actually stop and say, you know what, we're going to dictate this actual video that you're seeing. Here is exactly what you're seeing. So it's always good to be flexible.
How will you know? How will you know what the host would like, whether he wants to talk over the video or not?
For the most part, if you give me your video ahead of time, I have a chance to at least, you know, review the video. And then from there, I would make that call. If you guys are talking about the subject that relates to the video, I'm not going to wait for you to tell me. I'm going to go ahead and start playing it so that the conversation naturally flows over the video. But other times, I'm going to wait for you to actually cue me and let me know, because you may know a lot more about the topic than I do, so you have a better idea of when we should show it to our viewers.
Yeah, good advice. It's really amazing what you do, Zuri, to follow things that way,
Yeah.
and to know what people want before they know what they want. You know?
Oh, you guys are so good to us.
So Anu, let's make believe we're on a show right now today together, and you're the host and you're going into a break. Let's see you do that.
All right. Well, which is the camera? There we go. The red one.
The red one.
All right. So that's number one. All right. So here we are. We'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about more exciting things. So don't go away.
Hello, everybody. I'm IC Davidson. Thanks for tuning in to ThinkTech Hawaii. One of the things that we do here, or the thing that we do here, is promote civic engagement in Hawaii. What does that mean? We want to talk about things that people want to hear about, and we want you to engage us and be part of that conversation. One of the ways that you can do that is by joining in during our live show via Twitter. How do you do that? Well, you get on the interwebs and get Twitter, get an account, and mention us if you have a question. What you'll do is you tune into our show live, tweet us questions, and our hosts and guests will address them accordingly. It's really easy, it's really fun, and I think that your participation in what we're doing here will help us continue the dialogue on very important issues that we're trying to cover. Sustainability, clean energy, you name it, we're on top of it. We want you to be part of what we're doing, because together we'll be able to make things change. Thank you for watching ThinkTech Hawaii, thinktechhawaii.com, weekdays 12 to 5 p.m. That was weird.
Howard Wig, Code Green, welcome back. We have as our guest today Adam Smith, talking about the economies of a free world. Mr. Smith, welcome back again.
Wow, if you could do that. You know, we were talking about getting guests before.
Right.
If you could get Adam Smith, maybe he should come dressed in some 18th century outfit. Was it 17th?
Yeah, it was 18th century, 1760s.
Sorry, I questioned that. Okay, yeah, so what about the formulation of questions? I mean, it's very hard. And sometimes you have a guest who just stops short when he's finished or she's finished, boom, that's it. And then, whoop, we got dead air. We can't have dead air. We can't do that. Although I got to tell you a story. You know, early on in ThinkTech, there was one host who ran out of questions. And it was, you know, we were like 25 minutes into the show. And she turned to me, and I was sitting in the back of the studio, and she turned to me and she said, I don't have anything else.
While she was on air?
Oh, this requires some training. But, you know, I mean, the idea is to avoid dead air, but it's more than that. It's because, you know, you want to get the flow. It's all about a flow. And the flow is a flow, you know, where the listener actually can follow you. I mean, it's the natural path, the natural intellectual path of thought somehow. And you're actually anticipating what he would want. I mean, you're guessing in his mind. I call him Mr. Potato Man. I'll tell you why. Mr. Potato Man was an old game, right? And you had little pieces, and you put mouths and eyes and ears on the potato, and it would be different because you could change the way Mr. Potato Man looked. So you could design your own Mr. Potato Man. And when I was doing shows with Hawaii Public Radio, the idea was to ideate a listener. Have the listener in your mind. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be a completely fictitious listener, or it could be your best buddy, or it could be your spouse. Anything, doesn't matter. But you have this person in your mind, and you're really addressing the show to him. And I'll tell you, with me, it's a high school kid, around 16. And I want him to understand what's happening here. So I kind of ideate this high school kid. But anyway, I guess I got off on a distraction there. But so the question is, are you generating a track of thought, you know, that will fill the bill for this hypothetical listener? How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you form your questions?
I don't have a hypothetical listener, but it's
Well, maybe you will in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I'm already formulating, same. But I know something about what I'm talking about. And if we end too soon, I can always follow it up by, if nothing else, going more in depth on what the topic is. And I can continue. I know something about physics. So if necessary, I can follow it all the way down to the physics. And then pretty soon my guest gets very uncomfortable. So I say, okay, now. And then I shift it to a different question directly related to what we were talking about. I've never run out of questions to ask.
I noticed that. Yeah, that's really, it's a matter of being all in, you know, really physically, mentally here.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, it's the same with me. I feel like I know the subject matter, so I'm never going to really run out of questions or comments, you know, and then you can always interject with your own opinion about something or a fact that you have.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
If it's going to be for the benefit of this hypothetical listener, it's really an exchange.
Right.
It's not just tell me this, bomb, tell me that, bomb. You know, I think the audience wants to know what you think. And of course the other guy wants to know what you think, so that you can play off each other. You know?
And then linking back to other episodes as well. You know, so try to do that because I'm trying to build this library of information, so then that would make people go back to some of the other ones that we refer to, or see that, you know, we dealt with this issue in the previous episode, and now, or it was very similar to, for example, snail conservation issues were very similar to bird conservation issues in this way. So just so I think all of those things just fill up the time so quickly. I've really never had a problem with dead air.
No. Neither of you have.
Yeah.
And another thing that occurs to me is people love stories. I'm a Toastmaster and I'm good at telling stories. If we're at a pause, watch your hair. Oh.
Your hair is hitting the microphone. That's the point. That's the point, because this
yeah,
happens, you know. I mean, let me digress for a minute. Digressions are okay.
Yes,
And
because
we'll
it's
come
a
back.
tutorial.
Yeah,
I need to
tutorial.
jump into this digression
Yeah,
because
please.
I know that I actually cause a lot of the dead air. Because sometimes I have to let you guys know if there's, you know, somebody's hitting the microphone with their hair, their shirt.
Right.
Maybe there is an awkward pause, and I give you guys a clue as to what to say next.
Yeah.
You're doing very great hosting. Let's go ahead and talk more about what we do for those super nervous guests that just have really short answers. How do you get them to talk a little longer and, you know, have their answers be a little more in depth?
I think having slides really helps because that gives you that crutch, and that gives them the reassurance that, yes, I know something about this topic. So that's something we try to, I know one particular guest sort of stopped short, and then we just added from the second segment, I just sort of said, okay, let's start talking about that, and then that got him going again. So, you know, I think just sort of juggling things around and being flexible.
Well,
Yeah.
I mentioned stories. If the guest stops dead, I'll say, can you give me an example of that? Or I'm sure you had been out in the field and this has happened. Can you tell a story about what happened regarding this topic? And that gets them going.
Yeah.
One other thing that occurs to me is that having a title that is very relevant, it gives both the guest and the host something to come back to. And I find that
Especially at the breaks.
especially at the breaks, and that's one thing that I really put a lot of time into is the title. I keep going back to that and keep finding and playing off of those words through the whole episode.
A moment on titles. You know, we picked today, this is a hard one. What is it? Green Outrage, go figure.
I don't know what the go figure part is.
It gives you some kind of extension into
Right.
making you want to know more.
Yes.
But I think, of course, you want it to be sassy and you want it to be
Right.
provocative, but you also want it to be somewhat descriptive anyway, for search purposes.
Right.
Because remember, you know, people that go to YouTube or they go to our website and they put search words in, what are they going to be searching for to find this show? Now, mind you, what's in the description, which comes out of what you put on the calendar, those words are also searched. So between the title and those words, you know, you have to have enough search terms in there so people can find it.
Good point.
Yeah. So, and you want to, you don't want to put it very generic. It shouldn't be too generic. It shouldn't be too academic. It should have some sass in it, some
Right,
feist,
right.
so that if somebody sees it, for example, on the global newsletter, and they say, "Oh, I want to know more about that. It's got some mystery, some magic to it. You know, I want to come back to that."
And for each episode too, I feel, you know, that's something you want to emphasize. It gives it a little structure. And that's the start of the structure, the title. I find those titles are really important.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And they become more important now that we're doing radio. You know what we've done? We've peeled off the audio from the video and we broadcast that separately through a separate mechanism, which goes out and it can be captured on our site or listened to on our site as pure audio. Some people like pure audio, and I'll tell you, you need a lot less broadband to listen to pure audio. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, it works fine. But if you have pure audio, can't see anybody, you can't see the lower third titles on the screen.
Or the
So-
slides.
Say?
Or the slides.
Nothing, right?
Yeah.
So you have to remember that in the hopes that you won't lose the audio listener. So when you're coming back from a break, for example, it's important to say who's with you. Otherwise, nobody will know.
Yeah, that was a trick you taught me very early in the game. And I write, just in case I'm getting a little excited, I write the name of the guest and the title right in big, I always keep a notebook in front of me. And in big, bold letters, Mr. Adam Smith, the League of, or the Wealth of Nations, right there. And I repeat it with coming back every time.
Yeah, so that way, you know, because people only listen, a lot of people only listen for X minutes, you know, 6, 7, 8 minutes, and you want to, in that period, you want to repeat to them what we're doing here, and in the hopes that will hold them, one more point before we leave the thing about the track of the show, Zuri. You know, you frequently suggest things to me, and I appreciate that, and it helps me a lot. You do it in almost every show, for me anyway. My problem, by the way, is that if I'm talking or somebody else is talking at the exact moment that you're, you know, giving me the suggestion, I may not hear it. And so my suggestion on that is to repeat it at least once, so that if I didn't catch it the first time, I'll catch it the second time.
That's really good advice, Jay. I've been trying to learn a little more about when to deliver. Like right now, I forgot that all 3 of you had earpieces. So when I go to give one message to one person, you all hear and I cut you off. So, you know, I do try to follow along. If I have suggestions, I'll give them. Sometimes I just like to laugh so I can get that reaction out of you guys more. Because I love when you're watching each other and you're showing your support. It looks so great on screen.
It feels good right here. So one other thing is that Twitter, we should talk about Twitter a little bit. Why do we care about Twitter? we played some time ago with the notion of having telephone calls come in, but that like requires another person. It's labor, it's a complexity, and sometimes and you have to vet the calls because you can have some really weird things come in.
yeah.
I remember we were talking about computers one day, and some guy called in and he said, "You're talking about computers, but you haven't told us about electricity. How can you talk about computers when you haven't explained what?" He says, "I demand that you tell us about electricity right now." Whoops! I said, "Howard, this one's for you."
Yeah, whereas you can bypass all of that with tweets,
Right,
and you can
right.
decide to ignore if you want.
Right,
Yeah, and you can also bring it in it's not very intrusive because you can bring it into your,
Right. And furthermore,
Your
Zuri
episode.
can put it on the screen.
right,
So very cool that way.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about it. I mean, it's going to come from sometimes our floor manager, sometimes it's going to come from far away. Sometimes it's going to come from, who knows, the friend of the guest or your friend or somebody who's interested. I mean, it
Yeah.
really surprises me how people listen to our stuff. We did a show last week about caregiving. And some guy, a newspaper reporter, was listening because he himself was a caregiver. I didn't know that guys in the newspaper sit around and listen to our stuff. That's pretty good. So, there's people out there. We want to
Yeah.
engage with them.
Right.
We want to get them into the conversation. So Twitter is the best way we have.
Yeah.
So you can see the screen, and the floor manager will tell you there's a tweet on the screen. You would read the tweet at the appropriate time. You don't want to read it right away instantly because it may not pertain to your conversation. But you do want to do it if you can. If you can't, that's okay. If it's crazy, you don't want to spend time with it. And you want to thank the person,
Right.
and make it kind of part of an engagement, as if there's more people out there. We want to talk to you. We want to respond. Kind of thing. That's all we have,
Yeah.
in terms of engagement. So we want
Yeah,
that.
I would actually like to know how to get more people to tweet in. I feel like my demographic so far has been older people who maybe don't use Twitter as much, and so I'm trying to get on UH Manoa's calendar and their sustainability calendar and so on, so that we can have students tweeting in.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah,
That would be good.
yeah.
We're trying to get our stuff out as far as we can.
Right. Yeah.
Just a follow-up, another thing that you can do is you are able to ask people ahead of time what they want to hear on TV. What would they like to see on screen? So sometimes if they write you an email or something like that, you can either send me that directly and I can manipulate it and make it look good for on screen, or you can just kind of give them a shout out on air and say, such and such wanted to learn more about this and I thought it was important enough to bring up. So, Twitter isn't the only way, but it is a good way to, enhance your reach.
And talking about communication, one final area of discussion. What do you do when the show is over? I mean, I had one today where this was Aloha United We Stand, where two of us, both me and this guest, was so interested in what he was doing that we just sat here and chit-chat. They had to throw us out. But what do you do to bring the guest down? What do you do to relationship? Because, every show is a human experience worth remembering. What do you do? What's your style?
Well, I take them out to lunch beforehand because sometimes I've not met them since I haven't been in Hawaii very long. So sometimes I haven't met them beforehand, and it's nice to just get them, so I take them out to lunch, and then we go over any sort of anxieties or whatever. And then almost always they want to stay here and talk, so I have to kind of push them on out, right?
Isn't that true?
And then we go downstairs and we sit and, have a cup of coffee or something.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
That's very nice of you. Yeah. And Howard, what about you?
If they want to have lunch before, or if they're anxious, I say, by all means, let's have lunch. But generally, we just go back and forth on email. We're going to cover this, we're going to cover this, and here your slide should reflect this and this and this, and we're perfectly comfortable. And then, like you, I have to escort them out because somebody's anxious to come back in, and we stand down in the lobby and chat a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thank them profusely. Oh, and I thank them, to ease the end of the conversation, I say, well, we've only got a couple more minutes. let's cover this as our final
Yeah, that's
topic.
really an important thing. I'm learning to do that myself. How about you, Anu?
Yeah, I haven't managed to do it yet. Academics like to talk a lot, so you know, it's hard to tell them that let's stop here. But generally, I think we've come to a natural ending. It's just maybe doesn't coincide quite with the ending of the show.
Yeah.
So we have to. I think that's a great idea to just say, you know, we've got 2 more minutes. Let's touch on one more point.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I'd like to ask you to close, Anu. So
All right,
here we are.
so-
We run out of time. We've had our last discussion. I'm going to ask you to close too, Howard.
So
Two closings.
usually I'll have some kind of a quote or something, but today I will just say
Camera two.
today at camera 2, yes. I will just say it's been a pleasure having both of you here and being here with you. So this is Green Outrage, and this is Anu Hittle. And I usually end with aloha, namaskar, and goodbye.
Perfect. I love it. Howard, what about your style?
I will say it's been a great pleasure today to have Adam Smith as my guest, and we have learned everything we wanted to about the wealth of nations. This is Howard Wake, Code Green. See you next time. Thank you very much.
You and Lex Pro.
Before he says all of that greatness, Howard always says, on that cheery note, I love it. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Zuri
you.
Bender. Thank you, Anu. Thank you,
Thank
Howard.
you.
It's been great to talk with you guys.
You too.